So my mom, she wants to marry my boyfriend's father for money. Yeah, she's always been that way, but can you imagine having the audacity to go after your own kid's boyfriend's dad? Absolutely ridiculous, but don't worry, I have a plan to stop her. Hey guys, I wanted to share something crazy that happened to me. So I'm 23 years of age and I work as a secretary at this big company. I still live with my mom, which is pretty common these days. My parents split up when I was 7 years old, so I don't remember much about their time together or their divorce. Since then, my mom has been married several times. She's had quite a few husbands over the years, and it's been an interesting journey for the both of us. After her 5th divorce, she wanted to stick with me. That marriage was the longest 5 years, and my relationship with my mom is weird. I love her because she's my mom, but she does things that I don't like. So we argue a lot and aren't super close. I'm just trying not to argue with my mom every single day. Luckily, my fiancé is amazing. He keeps me in a good mood, and I love him a lot. He's the most caring guy I've ever met. We met at a fancy restaurant where I often go with my boss or to book a table for her. Every time I saw him, I was basically mesmerized. I was amazed. He has really cool curly hair and the prettiest eyes with long lashes. He's dark, tall, and smart, and I always sneak a look at him whenever I go to the restaurant. Well, one day, I finally got the courage to talk to him. He was serving tables that day, and my boss asked me to pick up her lunch, which I'd already ordered over the phone. While waiting, I said, "Hello." He smiled back, asking how I've been because he had not seen me in a while. I was surprised he remembered me. I asked if he knew me, and he said, "Oh yeah," remembering that I'm a regular customer and even knew my boss's usual order. It was so nice. We didn't swap numbers per se that day, but he told me his name is Mike. We started chatting after that, and I always looked forward to seeing him. Sometimes my boss changed her mind and got lunch elsewhere, which made me sad. After a while, we got really close with those short talks. We swapped numbers, and I was over the moon that night. I was happy. We would text each other funny memes and chat all night, and everything was going great until he suddenly just ghosted me. I was confused. He disappeared. He wasn't working at the restaurant anymore. He didn't respond to my text or calls anymore, and I don't know what happened. Eventually, I lost hope and gave up. I was really sad, but there was nothing I could do. I kept going on with my daily life, and whenever my boss asked me to order food from the restaurant, I didn't feel excited anymore. Actually, I hate going there now. Then 2 weeks later, he suddenly appeared at my doorstep with a bouquet of roses. Well, I was surprised. I thought that things were over between us. I felt angry at him for disappearing without a word. He then explained to me that he had to go back because there was a problem at another restaurant he owned. Well, I was confused when I heard that. I asked him what he meant by that. He owned a restaurant. I asked him why was he working here if he owns a restaurant. He explained that also his father owns this restaurant. Technically everything belongs to his dad. Well, I was still mighty confused and surprised that I had mistaken him for a waiter, but I was also annoyed that he had not reached out for weeks. And now he just shows up suddenly and he tells me that the kitchen in the other restaurant caught fire. His dad was in Europe at the time. So he had to handle everything himself and did not find time to text me during the chaos. When he finally did have time, he was scared it would sound like he was making up an excuse. So he decided to come directly to me instead, and I didn't know what to say. I was sad that he did not even text me about it, but I could also understand where he was coming from. He promised that he would make up for it and would work hard to win me back. And boy, he did. He would always come pick me up after work, and he would even send lunch to my office, and we went on countless dates together. Although I wasn't sure about him at first, I slowly started to fall for him. We met every day after work and spent a lot of time together. However, deep down, I was scared about the differences in our families. My mom isn't somebody who's loving or shows much care. We weren't rich, and I worried about whether Mike would want to marry me or if his dad would approve of me. But Mike reassured me that he really loved me and was serious about our relationship. And that's how we ended up dating for 4 years. During these 4 years, Mike only met my mom twice. Once during Thanksgiving and another time at my cousin's wedding. Mike wanted to meet her more and get to know her better, but I knew how my mom was. I was afraid that she would sabotage everything for me per usual. Mike, he was mighty understanding, but it still made things a bit complicated for us. Despite this, we kept going really, really strong. Mike made me feel special every day, and he would show me what it's like to be truly cared for and loved. And even though I had my doubts, his love and dedication, it slowly melted my fears away. Then the sweetest thing happened, something I will seriously just never forget. I still remember every little detail of it, and one day after work, Mike was supposed to pick me up as usual, but he said that he had some things to do at the restaurant. He asked me to come there instead, and we would have dinner, and then he would drop me home. I didn't think much of it, since it was a normal thing for us. Mike either picked me up after work, or I went to his restaurant. We would always have dinner together unless something just came up. So, when I reached the restaurant, it was empty and dark, and I was a bit confused. I looked at the time and saw it was just 9 p.m., which was way too early for the restaurant to be closed. I tried the door. It was open, so I went inside. Suddenly, I was greeted with the most beautiful sight, a trail of rose petals and candles, leading to a table that was decorated with flowers and a cake. The whole place was full of roses and balloons. I cried because I knew what was coming next, and I simply could not believe it. Mike went down on his knee and proposed to me with the prettiest ring I've ever seen in my entire life. It was the most beautiful night of my life, I can honestly say that proudly. And the food, oh boy, the food was great. We celebrated together and I felt so special and loved. It was a moment that I'll certainly cherish forever. I knew I had to share the good news with my family, Mike needed to tell his family as well. So Mike suggested that we should meet somewhere nice, introduce our families together, and break the news. Well, I agreed, but I was a little nervous about how our parents would react with each other. We booked a reservation at some fancy hotel owned by them for the weekend. I invited my mom to come with me to the hotel that weekend, and she got excited right away and started packing her clothes and shoes. Well, after work, Mike and I went to pick up my mom from home. I'd already called her and asked her to get ready because we were going together in Mike's car. However, when we got there, she still wasn't ready, and we had to wait for about an hour. I felt so dang embarrassed by my mom's outfit. She showed up wearing the tiniest of tiny dresses, which was very inappropriate and a very, very low cut. She also wore these high heels that were way too high and this bold red lipstick. I felt a bit ashamed in front of Mike, but I decided to keep quiet. When she saw Mike, she shrieked and gave him a long hug. It was odd, because they'd only met twice before, and those meetings were brief. During the car ride, she kept complaining about how I had not bought her new clothes, and how I never took her to nice places anymore. Well, she also mentioned that we must go into a lot of fancy places without her. She complained the whole time, and I could tell Mike was also uncomfortable, and I just quickly realized that bringing her along was a bad idea. When we arrived at the hotel, I noticed that Mike's dad was waiting for us in the lobby. As we walked towards him, my mom practically sprinted towards Mike's dad and shook his hand. Mike's dad was surprised, but he greeted back. Mom kept acting strange and coy in front of him, and we were led to our table at the restaurant inside, and as we sat and waited for our food, we made small chit-chat. Mike's dad's a nice old man, and I've met him a couple times before, which was always lovely. However, Mom chose to sit next to him instead of beside me, and she laughed at every single word that he said. Anyone over 10 years old could see easily what she was trying to do. She was flirting with my boyfriend's father. Everybody in the room was extremely uncomfortable, especially Mike's dad. When the food arrived, we ate, but Mom decided to open her mouth and start spouting this nonsense. She embarrassed me by bringing things up from my past, including the fact that I was dating someone and almost got engaged to him. But she broke us apart because he was poor? I was so ashamed that I started tearing up because it wasn't true. Mike looked shocked at the news, and his dad excused himself to go to the washroom. Mom was obviously oblivious and kept eating her little meal. My mood was ruined, and I knew what Mike's dad must be thinking of us now. We're gold diggers. Mike said, well, he wanted to know if I was okay. But before I could reply, there was a commotion near the washroom. When I looked back at our table, Mom was gone. I had a bad feeling about this. I got up and went to check what was going on. Apparently, Mom spilled wine on Mike's dad while trying to flirt with him. I was so embarrassed that I pulled Mom away and we left the hotel right away. I could not bear to spend any more time inside after that. I cried and had a big fight with Mom that night. I asked her why she always had to ruin things for me. I wondered if she could not just stand to see me happy. I couldn't believe that she would act this way, and it made me feel really bad. Mike hasn't called me since we left the hotel. Mom did not seem to realize how serious the situation at hand was. She was just watching a reality show and relaxing on the couch like nothing happened. I was angry with her, and she told me that she didn't do anything wrong and asked if I would not hit on somebody who was a good catch, like Mike's daddy-o. I couldn't believe that she was saying this. I was so mad that I left. I needed some peace and quiet to calm myself down, and I haven't spoke to Mike either, and I don't know what to do. I'm afraid that things will end between us because of what happened with my mom. This is exactly how my last relationship ended, all because of my mom's behavior. Is this how a mother is supposed to act? I'm feeling really lost right now, guys. I mean, what should I do next? Please let me know. I'm begging you. Update number 1. 1 week later. Hey guys, it's me, and well, I'm here, back for an update. I've read your comments and I agree that I should not have invited my mom. A lot has happened since the incident a few days ago, and after the fight with my mom that day, I told her that either she had to leave the place or I would. I explained that we could not continue to stay together after what she had done. She refused to leave, so I decided I'll move out. I'm currently staying at a friend's place for a few days while I look for a place to rent. Mike called me the day after the incident. He asked how I was doing and told me he felt very embarrassed in front of his dad. He didn't want his father to have a bad impression of me, but that's exactly what happened. I told Mike about the fight with my mom, and I'm staying with a friend. After hearing what happened, he offered me to stay at his place with him. He said he didn't want me to be stressed and that he cares about me a lot. Well, I considered Mike's offer because I didn't want to inconvenience my friend any longer. Mike then told me that he had not told his father about our engagement. His dad asked him to break it off with me because he thinks my family is a disaster, a messy mess. I felt very sad to hear that. Well, Mike also asked me about what my mom was saying that day, especially about my ex. I explained that my mom interfered in my previous relationship, and we ended up breaking up because of her. My ex was a nice guy who got a job in a different city and moved there soon after. It seemed like Mike was not convinced by my story. I was scared that he might have lost his trust in me, and now we're staying together? And on the surface, everything seems fine, but it's not. Even though we aren't fighting, I can just tell that Mike is unhappy. Maybe he's not mad at me directly, but the whole situation has caused some issues between us. I feel a tension between us that was not there before. We still talk and spend time together, but it just feels different. I worry about what this means for the future, and whether things will ever go back to the way that they were. One day, Mike came back and dropped an absolute bombshell. He said his father asked him to end things with me because he didn't want Mike to be associated with me anymore. It was all of a sudden, and it seemed like Mom had met with Mike's dad and said a lot of untrue things or something. Mike was furious at his father for interfering in our relationship, but he was also very, very angry with me, and at my mom, for manipulating his father. And when I asked Mike what my mom told his dad about me, he said that my mom told him I was mentally ill and needed attention all the time. She said that she was concerned about him and Mike. My mom claimed that only she knew how difficult it was to deal with me because I still lived with her. I was furious at my mom, and why would she say such mean things about me that weren't even true? It hurt to hear her spread these vicious lies and trying to damage my relationship with Mike. I was honestly shocked. Then Mike found out about my mom's dating history and accused me of not telling him about it before. Ugh! I mean, come on. I tried to explain that I had mentioned it to him, but not in great detail, man. And whenever we talked about it, Mike always seemed to understand, and we would just move on. It's really not that big of a deal. But now it seemed like he did not fully grasp the seriousness of the situation at hand. I felt hurt that Mike seemed to be blaming me, and it caused a lot of fights between us. I know he's just frustrated with everything that's happening around us, and honestly, I am too. I'm exhausted from dealing with my mom's antics and the mess that she's created in our lives. Update number 2, a month later. Hey, everybody. It's been a month since my last post, and I'm sorry for not updating you soon. I've been really stressed out lately and just haven't had the time to fill you in on what's been going on. I left some things out of my old place with my mom, so I decided to go back and get it. It was the weekend and I didn't have to go to work, so I went after grabbing a quick breakfast bite. Mike offered to drive me, but I said no because he had a lot of work to do. I took his car and drove there myself. When I reached the apartment, it was locked from the inside. I rang the bell, but Mom did not answer. Since I knew the password, I just entered. There were alcohol bottles all over the ground, and the house was a mess. Loud music was playing from inside the living room. Well, I was about to enter the living room, and I heard Mom talking to somebody, and I recognized the voice as John. John is my mom's 5th husband. They were talking about somebody, so I didn't go but decided to eavesdrop. They were talking about how wealthy he was and how he owned a hotel and many restaurants, and it caught me off guard. They were discussing Mike's family. John asked my mom how I managed to find such a rich man, and my mom replied that I caught a rich man but didn't even know how to get money from him, and she laughed at me. She questioned the point of even having a rich man, and they laughed even more. Well, then my mom told my stepdad that she met Mike's dad the other day. Yeah, that's right. From what it sounds like, it seems like Mike's dad has fallen for my mom's trick. My mom is very good at seducing men, and their plan is to get as much money from them as possible and then run away with it. It was shocking, it was absolutely hurtful to hear them talk about me and my relationship like that. Oh, boy. They didn't realize I was there because they were very drunk. I quickly snuck out without getting my things, and I was shocked that my mom would go to such lengths to just get a tad bit of money. I could not believe what I just heard. As soon as I reached Mike's place, I told him everything I heard about them. He was also shocked that Mom would do something like that to her own daughter. I cried so much that day. I never felt so betrayed in my life. Mike was there beside me the whole time. He didn't go to work either, and we talked a lot that day, and the misunderstanding between us got cleared up really quick. Mike told me he felt so bad that I had to go through all this because of my mom. He couldn't imagine how I managed to grow up with her as a mother. He even cried for me because he could not bear to think about how much I had suffered because of her. After everything was resolved between us, Mike and me, we started planning what to do and how to stop my mom's plan to marry Mike's dad. We knew that we had to act quickly and carefully, and thankfully I reacted quickly enough and recorded them talking earlier. I knew I could use this against them somehow. I need to help Mike's dad before my mom uses him too. I did feel a mix of relief and anger as I replayed that recording. It was proof of my mom's intentions and gave me a way to protect Mike's dad from her. I knew I had to act fast to prevent her from taking advantage of him. So I just told Mike about the recording, and he agreed that we needed to show it to his dad. We planned to meet with his father as soon as possible to let him know the truth. It was important to do this before my mom could manipulate him any further. This situation has been really tough, but I'm glad I have a way to fight back now. I need to stay strong and focused just to make sure my mom doesn't hurt anyone else. I'm so grateful for all your suggestions and the strength that you've given me. I'm glad I'm finally free from her manipulation. It feels like a huge weight's been lifted off of my shoulders. Now I can focus on building a happy life with Mike without influenced by my mom's toxic behavior. Anyways, I'll be up to update you if anything happens. Update number 3. Oh my goodness, guys. Hey, I know you've been waiting to hear what happened with the recording, so here's the update. Mike and I finally had some free time, so we went to his father to show him the video. When we played it for him, he was shocked. He felt really ashamed that he fell for my mom's tactic, her trickery. He apologized to me and Mike and said that he was going to break things off with her, but I stopped him because no, I have a better plan. According to the plan, I called my mom and apologized for reacting the way I did. She said she knew I would come around, but little did she know what I had in store for her. I invited her to a nice resort and told her that I had ended things with Mike just like she asked. I asked her to come so we could talk, reconcile, and also resolve the things between us. She was happy to hear that I broke up with Mike. Well, the next day, my mom came to the resort and I was waiting for her. She looked around but did not see Mike and his father. She asked where they were and I told her that they have not arrived yet and asked her to relax for a bit. I acted sad, but little did she know that Mike and his father was sitting in the next room listening to our conversation through the bamboo wall. My mother asked me how it happened, and I told her that Mike suddenly changed his mind, and his dad did not approve of me either. My mom said it was for the better, as they would have treated me poorly because they were rich and I was poor. Mom was trying to manipulate me into thinking that I made the right decision, and just in time I get a call and excuse myself. It was actually Mike signaling to me that John had arrived. Earlier, I logged into Mom's Facebook and texted John, pretending to be Mom. I told him I was serious about Mike's dad, that I was in love with him, and that he was going to propose to me at a resort tonight. I also told John to not disturb us again, and that I never even loved him. I even gave him the address. I did this because I knew John was problematic. He would cause trouble for Mom, and oh boy, was I right. I went to the other room and listened quietly to their conversation. Mom was shocked to see John, and she shrieked at him and asked what he was doing there. John accused her of trying to take all the money and leave him behind. They started fighting, and Mom was freaking out and told John that they could talk about it later. But he did not agree. He threatened to sabotage her if he wasn't getting anything out of it, and if she was leaving him for Mike's dad. He started shouting, and Mom began to panic. Right at that moment, we all walked into the room. Mom was shocked that she could not even produce a word. She just stuttered, trying to explain herself, and John started shouting, accusing Mom of playing games with all of us. He said that she wanted to marry Mike's dad for his money and ruin our marriage, and we laughed at their faces, and Mom and John were confused with the reaction. I scoffed at them and asked if they really thought that we didn't know what they were up to. It was ridiculous to think that they could get away with it. Mom looked absolutely stunned. I told her not to be surprised yet, and I confessed to John that I was the one who texted him. Mom started shouting and crying, blaming me for ruining her plan. I found it amusing. John got violent, but we had already alerted security. They arrived quickly and took him away, and he shouted that he would not forgive me for what I did. While Mom continued to scream, I told her this was the last time that she would see my face. I didn't want anything to do with a woman like her. She asked how I could do this to my mom, and I countered, asking if she had ever really been my mom, even for a single day. She couldn't answer and stayed silent, and we left her there crying. Mike's father knows about our engagement and gave us his blessing. We're planning to marry next summer, and I'm excited about it, and I'm grateful for all of the support during such a tough time. Now, Mike and I are very happy and busy planning our wedding. This will be my final update, and I've never imagined that I would reach this point after everything that happened.